And here we are. We're going to start a workshop today. We're going to be talking about this cannabis plant, which has been in the news lately because THC has now become legal in New York State. And it is what we call the psychoactive portion of this plant, the cannabis plant. And CBD, which is a non-psychoactive part, is currently legal. And it's legal in all 50 states. And we're going to talk about both of them and what role they play in human health. CBD, again, is a non-psychoactive part that a lot of people don't understand. I think the THC segment of the cannabis plant has kind of mystified or made it look as if it's taboo or illegal or all of the terms above. And it's kept us away from the real science. And we're going to talk about the science here. We're going to take a lot of the things that people may have beliefs because of talk that isn't backed by science. We're going to back everything with science today. We're going to talk about why these are very, how should I say, they're very epigenetically connected. They're extremely, the word epigenetics is a term that refers to the way that our genes express themselves. And the epigenetics mean that the connections of this plant, the cannabis plant, to the human genome has the highest correlation of epigenetic connections. That means that when we consume this plant, and this plant gets into our system, it turns our genes on for expression in a positive note, and it also turns off the negative genes that would allow us to get cancer or allow us to have dis-ease. It turns those genes of expression off. So that's the epigenetic connection. And there's various different strains of this cannabis plant. This is some background on it. Sativa was one that was first known, and it's a variety of this cannabis plant that can grow up to 20 feet tall, huge plants. And it tends to have certain effects on the psychoactive side, where it gets people to laugh uncontrollably sometimes, engage in in-depth conversations, and enhance creativity. And then we look at the indica strain, and again, it's the same cannabis plant, but it has a little bit different effects. It has a reducing stress effect and a relief of pain and limited anxiety. And then we look at hybrids, and it's a cross between the two. And we've got all of these different plants that are out there, and everybody kind of categorizes them as either being hemp, which was the term that people said they have CBD in them. And then the other category was, the pot or the marijuana, which has THC. Well, I'm here to tell you that the THC, or the psychoactive effect, is only one of the cannabinoids, and there's many of them in there. And the beauty of this plant is that they have an amazing effect on us, and they have an effect that we're gonna learn about more right here. This is the plant, and it has so many uses. If we look at it, besides the cannabinoids that we're going to mainly focus on, I want you to realize that this plant has so many uses. It can be used in so many areas in our economy, and it can be a big salvation to what we're doing to the planet. Matter of fact, textiles and papers could all be made out of this hemp plant, and it could produce huge amounts of biomass in a 1-year period, as opposed to what we do with trees today. And you go down the list, and it's absolutely amazing the amount of purposes that this plant can have in our society. And now we're just starting to come back and open the door to being able to use this plant as it should have been used right along. And now it's starting to finally get back to where it should be. This is our human body. And this is really important to understand, because we have this system in our human body called the endocannabinoid system. And what it is responsible is it's responsible for all of the things on the right: our motivation and reward system, our thermal, regulation, stress response, metabolism, appetite, mood, pain, energy, sensation, inflammation, and muscle control. All of those systems, the lymphatic system, the endocrine system, the reproductive system, the cardiovascular system, every one of these systems are governed by a system within our bodies called the endocannabinoid system. And this system works whereby it is stimulated by the cannabinoids that are produced by the human body, and they hit the receptors and they stimulate that particular system to go to a state of homeostasis or balance. So let's say it goes to the digestive system, and the digestive system isn't operating right. And the body produces cannabinoids that hit the receptors that then stimulate that digestive system to go back into balance because it's out of balance, it's not operating the way it should, and therefore the body is now given the stimulus to go back to a balanced state. And that's being done all by the body self. Every one of us is doing that on a day-to-day basis, some of us with more success than others, because what is happening in our environment is that our endocannabinoid system is not able to have the neurochemical responses hitting the receptors because of all the environmental chemicals, all of the stresses on our bodies, all of the miscommunications that are going on. And we're finding that our systems aren't being stressed or stimulated in the proper manner. The way they're actually stimulated is stress is what causes stimulation. So the system actually gets slightly stressed, which causes stimulation. Let's see here. So the human endocrine system, we have all of these receptors throughout our body. We're born with them. They're all there. And there's CB1 receptors and there's CB2 receptors. And each one is in a region of the body, and they are used to stimulate the various systems, everything from, producing the proper chemicals for brain balance to the proper systems for blood balance, the digestive system. Every one of our systems rely on this system as a basis to be able to come to a homeostasis or balanced position in the human body. And all these receptors are there. The most well-known cannabinoid receptors, CB1 and CB2, are proteins that are embedded in the membrane of cells. The surface proteins are then attached to another protein that determines the signaling of either activation or inhibition. So in other words, the regulation is both ways. If we're producing too much, let's say we have a thought. We had an event that was very traumatic, and we keep thinking about a thought, and our mind keeps thinking about it over and over again, and that synapses keeps flowing, and that's what's happening. That is a system that is out of balance, and the body will produce the cannabinoids that will go and stimulate that particular system, probably through the CB1 receptor, as you see in the top left, and it'll go to the thalamus and the hypothalamus and the pituitary, and it'll start to regulate all of the chemicals there to stop that synapses from firing over and over and over again, because it shouldn't be doing that. There's no longer a condition that causes that. Therefore, the person whose CB1 receptor has now been hit, who is going through that traumatic recollection of that event over and over again, causing trauma, all of a sudden chemicals are released and the thought dissipates, or the attention is brought to another area. The pattern stops because you've been stimulated, and that's the way the system should work on its own. That is how the body and the mind is designed to work. And these are the actual receptors. And as you see, we have these keys that fit into these receptors. And that's how it works. So you just can't have any chemical, you can't have any compound come into the human body. Everything is got a specific pattern. So in the endocannabinoid system, the body produces these cannabinoids, and these endocannabinoids are like keys that fit into the receptor and then cause these proteins to move, which cause either activation or deregulation of a particular hormone or a particular chemical in the brain to balance, or a particular chemical needed to balance a human system. And what nature has provided is actually divine when you think about the fact that those locks and keys that are set up in the human body through the endocannabinoid system also work with phytocannabinoids that the cannabis plant has. So all of a sudden, all of these cannabinoids that our body is producing in order to stimulate our system, if they're being blocked because we have chemical imbalances from environmental chemicals and food chemicals and imbalance in our gut and all these disruptions, we bring in phytocannabinoids and all of a sudden they fit like a lock and a key to stimulate the same systems that we could do before. But if our bodies are deficient in being able to produce it, we have a deficiency of us being in perfect symbiotic relationship in our systems within us. And on the left, the phytocannabinoids, the cannabis plant and other plants produce cannabinoids which impact with our body's receptors. These plant cannabinoids are known as phytocannabinoids. Phyto is a prefix that means pertaining to or derived from plants. They're categorized as any plant-derived natural product with the capability to directly interact with the body's cannabinoid receptors or share chemical similarity with cannabinoids. Phytocannabinoids from cannabis have significantly influenced research on endocannabinoid system. So far, they have become widely known for their medicinal properties in recent years. And the endocannabinoid system is a system, and if you look at it, it produces all of the balancing of the systems that have to do with cognitive processes, fertility, pregnancy, pre and postnatal development, appetite, mood, memory. It's amazing that our body knows how to do it, and then nature has also provided a plant that is so epigenetically connected. That's where the epigenetics come in. Look at how it turns our genes on. Look at how it stimulates our immune system, our mind balancing system, our blood pressure, our cholesterol levels, the microbial balance in our gut, all these things. Absolutely amazing. And here we have, these are the endocannabinoids that are produced, and they hit these receptors that are set up throughout the body for us. And the phytocannabinoids, which are these multitude of different cannabinoids, over 60 of them. There's over 400 different chemicals in this plant. And some of them are known as flavonoids, and the other ones are known as terpenes, and then the cannabinoids. And THC is just one of them. There's actually 3 that are psychoactive: THC, and then there's a CB, I believe it's I don't want to misquote it. It's like 3, the THC everybody knows is very psychoactive. The other 2 are very minor psychoactive, but they do have a little bit of an effect. And what they're actually doing, when I say psychoactive, what I want you to think about is they are altering your perception of reality so that you can have a different look at it. That's what it's doing. So it's changing your reality of the pain that you have. That's how it affects the pain. And it also affects the pain area by stopping the synapses flow of the pain interjecting and firing over and over again. It's going to balance that system. It's going to start to work on all of those systems. And all of these phytocannabinoids are all natural. Again, it's absolutely amazing. And if you look at the mathematics of what it would take for a plant to have the exact same lock and key configuration with the human body, it's mathematically impossible that this happened by chance. Every mammal on the planet has this exact same system. So everything I'm telling you about the human system and how it works for dogs, it works for cats, it works for horses, gorillas, monkeys, every mammal. Same effect. They have the same endocannabinoid system, the same receptor system. And the phytocannabinoids stimulate and hit the same receptors with the lock and key ability to stimulate our bodies to go to homeostasis. And here we're talking about some of these cannabinoids that we've heard about. We have CBD, we have CBDA. And let me explain something about the way that you see these. CBDA is an acid. You could see the term acid after it. And the same thing on the bottom, you'll see THCA. It's also considered to be an acid. If you took that CBDA in its plant form, naturally how it grew, it wouldn't be CBD, it would just be CBDA, and it would affect your body a certain way. And if you took THCA, it wouldn't even get you high. There would be no psychoactive effect at all. However, if you took THCA and you heat it above like 160 degrees, around 170 degrees for about an hour, the THCA turns into THC, and now it will get you high and will be psychoactive. And CBDA will turn to CBD, and it will fit a different lock and key formation in your receptors. So the interesting thing is that when we make a tincture, we try to get both CBDA and CBD in there because we want to hit as many receptors as possible. And the same thing, if somebody were to take THCA, which is a very powerful anti-cancer, and if they were to take that, they would get the benefits of all of that without the psychoactive effect. And a little story, one of the doctors that I was listening to doing a podcast, they were telling a story about how they were doing cancer work. Somebody had been diagnosed with cancer, and they were taking THCA, and they had it in a vial in oil, and they had it right alongside their bed. And all of a sudden, they both took their tincture, and they looked at each other and says, "I feel a little different." And they thought about it, and they say, "Yeah, I do too," and they were getting slightly psychoactive effect. And they tried to figure it out, and finally they looked and they realized that it was sitting on the bedstand, and when the sun came across through the window, the sun would hit that vial, would heat the vial up, not a huge amount, but just a little bit. And as the sun passed, it would get out of the sunlight, but it was enough to start to increase the conversion of THCA into THC, and it was causing a psychoactive effect, and that was the reason for that. So it has an effect that we have different chemical compounds that can be changed with some physical energy being put into them in the form of heat as well. And that is the reason, by the way, that when you see people getting high, they're smoking marijuana, because if it's not heated, it's not going to get them high. It wouldn't be activated into THC. It would just be THCA, and they wouldn't get high. If they take that flower and eat it, it won't get you high. So if you're making an edible where you want people to get high from and get the psychoactive effect, you need to decarbonize that product before you put it into the food, or by baking it, it'll be hot enough that it'll turn the THCA into THC if that's the effect that you want it. So this is really important, because this is what I consider to be one of the most sacred things about this plant, is that the most important thing that we're finding is the entourage effect of all of the components in the plant entering into the human body in the proportions that the plant was produced in nature. And we talked about the cannabinoids, which there's about 60 of them. But if we look on the left, the terpenes, there are more than 100 terpenes in just one cannabis flower Terpenes give cannabis its distinctive aroma and flavor qualities, as well as impairing a host of therapeutic effects. Cannabis terpenes like linalool, also present in lavender, and pinene in conifers, have been used to promote sleep and fight inflammation. The flavonoids, similar to terpenes, have a role in how we perceive cannabis through our senses. There are a lot more flavonoids than what meets our nose and our taste buds. In fact, flavonoids are among the most misunderstood or understudied compound found within the plant. So there's so much that we don't know. And the reason we don't know a lot of this, and this is such an exciting time to be able to have this happening, is that the federal government within the next 2 years, and probably 1 year, but I'll be conservative and say 2 years, is going to take the cannabis plant off the Schedule I class list for drugs. What that means is that every college and university that love to do research have been banned from doing any research on this plant because it's on a controlled substance list. And if they did research, they could lose their funding. So we've had very limited funding for the research. And all these great researchers are chomping at the bit to be able to conduct their studies and be able to do it, but they've been hindered. And all of that is now going to open up. And the amount of knowledge that we have to gain, we know less than 1% about what is truly happening within our bodies when we start to enter into the flavonoids and the terpenes and what roles they play. If we go to this next slide, look at all these terpenes, and there's over 100 of these, and these are just some of the ones. And look at the effects they have on the body: anti-inflammatory, bone stimulant, anti-cancer, antioxidant, anti-anxiety, digestion, gallstones, relaxing, sedating, antibacterial, antifungal. And all of these different plants have these in different proportions. And that's the beauty of it, is that, when you bring a different plant into, number one, as human beings, we have different numbers of receptors throughout our body. And then number two, these plants have different components that will hit our receptors. So the experience can be different with different plants. So like an example is we carry CBD oil in 4 different varieties, and people that get Hawaiian haze find that they don't have a problem sleeping once they take Hawaiian haze. And people with sour space candy has a very body calming effect. It causes their body to just feel less pain and less inflammation. And Electra increases their awareness of the present moment and what they're doing. And it has that effect because it happens to be more of a sativa. So the terpenes and all of these other compounds that are in there have this effect called the entourage effect that stimulates the human mind and the human body in different ways. And the thing to understand is that we talk about the mind and we talk about the psychoactive THC. We should be talking about the mind and the non-psychoactive CBD and all the other cannabinoids, because they are the ones that are responsible for keeping things like serotonin and dopamine and GABA in the mind and allowing it to be more free-flowing and even stimulating atomide production, which is like the bliss hormone. So the CB2 receptors, although people like the idea of the psychoactive making them high and they get to escape from their reality, if you're taking the CBD, your reality will be much more tolerable because you won't get caught up in it with all of the stuff in your head. You'll be part of the environment instead of being judgmental of the environment, because you're going to produce mental balance that will take you in a state of homeostasis, or what one researcher described, it puts your mind in a state of safety where it can relieve itself and relax and be okay. Because there's really 4 things we want. We want to be healthy, we want to be happy, we want to feel safe, and we want to be at ease. And that's a description of exactly what CBD and the cannabis plant offers to the human body, because that's what homeostasis would bring. It wouldn't bring the worry, because worrying doesn't help. We're actually thinking about something that isn't even happening. We're thinking about a bill that's going to come due, or we're thinking about something that might happen, or we're thinking about somebody we're going to meet and what might happen, or something that happened last week. And all those things really aren't relevant, but they're self-imposed, and it's what we call a monkey mind. It just keeps going on and on. But true balance would be that we would be enjoying the day outside and enjoying the people around us and not caught up in our head. But in order to do that, we need to bring the balance to the chemicals. And how do we do that? Well, we have an internal system, and if it's not working the right way and we're not feeling the way we should, well, my gosh, we should be taking this, and we shouldn't be worried about the fact that it's been taboo forever. That's not real. The reality is the science behind it. This is amazing, all these different chemicals that are found in these plants, and they're different amounts in each one. Let's see here. These are all the flavonoids. And look at these. I mean, another one, anti-cancer, cardiovascular. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, the pharmaceutical companies, what they want to do is they want to take the first one, let's say the apingenine, however you pronounce it, and they want to take that, they want to isolate it, they want to produce it in high volume, patent it, and then make a drug on it so that they can sell that particular one for you for one particular purpose. And that's what the pharmaceutical industry wants to do with this plant. But the reality is they'll never get what they're supposed to get out of it, because the entourage effect of a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of that, just like Mother Nature did it, that's the winning one. That's the one that wins. And that's the beauty. We're going to be allowed to do this. You're going to be allowed to grow your own plants in this state. It probably won't happen for 2.5 years, probably 2023, the spring of 2023. That's what the legislation will allow. But then you'll be able to do this. You'll be able to grow your own medicine. And look at all these, look at all of these different amazing benefits you can get out of this, all in a plant. And basically, grows like a weed, and shouldn't cost what it costs. It should be a fraction of the cost of what everybody charges. And that's what we've done with CBD. We sell it for about half of what a lot of people do on the street. It's got to be affordable if we're going to get the benefit out of it. And if we're getting the benefit out of it, what about the dog? Everybody loves man's best friend. And there's 10 reasons why you should give it to your pet. And sometimes it's easier to love your pet more than it is to love yourself. But realize these same things are in effect for you. It will help with your joints and your arthritis, and your appetite will get better, and it's safe and effective. It'll reduce anxiety. It'll fight cancer, relieve pain, reduce inflammation, help a nervous system in an animal or in you. And it's amazing how it works. Look at that. Gallbladder, pancreas, colon, liver, stomach, spleen. The receptors are everywhere. Every one of the systems. And I can tell you stories about dogs. We have a dog here, Viv's dog, Lilu, and she was very achy, and she just looked like, and she's only going to be 6 years old. But there's a lot of things that we feed our dogs, this dog food and everything. Anyway, this dog is achy. I started giving her CBD oil. She runs up the stairs like she's 2-3 years old, and perfect body. Just amazing, because something is out of balance. We don't know where it comes from, but you get things back in balance and they act completely different. Another girl here at work, Ella, she's got a beautiful golden retriever. Dog is 8 months old, taking it out for a walk. It gets on a trail of an animal and takes off. They go looking for it, can't find it. This was about probably 6 weeks ago. For 18 days, that dog was out in the wild during snowstorms, windstorms, all kinds of stuff. The dog apparently just shows up one day. But the dog cannot sleep at night. The dog is just whimpering and jerking and every hour up and, wants to see somebody. So what do? We get some Hawaiian haze. We mix it with some sardine oil, puts a dropper full on the food. The dog sleeps at night, been perfect ever since, because it was able to relieve the trauma that was going and causing this reaction in the mind, that was replaying over and over again. And finally, the dog was just given the permission chemically to let go of it. And it's gone. Dog doesn't think about it anymore. Dog sleeps perfect, like it never happened. And that's the way we should be looking at ourselves, is that we can do that with ourselves. We just got to take the time and have the understanding. And this is something which I think should just be brought to our attention, because cannabis has been demonized. People that have used cannabis have been looked down upon as being, these hippies or people that are, rebels or whatever. But let's look at the facts here. Alcohol is widely accepted. Everybody could drink, and even children, parents will let them have a sip of beer or whatever. But look at the difference. Look at the effects. In the brain, it causes anxiety and depression, and cannabis relieves it. It affects your motor coordination. Yeah, it affects your motor coordination. They find that if you drink alcohol, you speed. If you drink pot, you go real slow. So it does have an effect. It affects your emotions and anger levels, and it does the exact opposite in people. It reduces their anger levels. It's non-toxic. Alcohol is extremely toxic, and the list goes on and on. So I really think we need to look at what reality is and what we've been sold as a bill of goods, and start to look at the facts and understand that, there aren't a lot of receptors for alcohol in our system that are producing healthful effects in our system. But the cannabis plant has a huge amount, and it has amazing effects on human health. And it's all within our grasp now to be part of this and to understand. And as we understand, we can open doors to health that we only dreamed the health system could bring. Because the health system is set up to fix problems, and it's not to bring you into balance. It's to fix the problem so that it goes away. And if something else is out of whack, well, then we'll fix that problem. The body is meant to be in homeostasis, and it's not that difficult to get there. We just have to understand what truly makes this body work. And to me, it's very simple. This plant, I don't drink alcohol. I haven't for over 20 years. If I did, I wouldn't be here doing this right now. I'd be lucky if I'd be alive. The cannabis on the other side, I take that on a daily basis to be able to enhance my body system, and my memory and my mind, my inflammation, and my muscles are working better than they have for the last 20 years. So I can be a testament to the fact that it works.
Tom?
Yeah.
So we just have a quick question, and if you don't mind, I'll just stop you as the questions come up so that we can relate. Okay. It's on the particular slide that you're on now. Are those diseases at the bottom caused by cannabis, or are they treated with cannabis?
Those are, it appears the way that they've written it, diseases caused with cannabis. But I know for a fact that cannabis fixes numerous cancers and fixes liver disease, and is worked with, it's worked on the positive side. I do think it's misleading the way it states it. I know this facts to be the opposite. There have been 0 overdose deaths with cannabis, that I can tell you. But as far as all of those diseases, I don't know why it should be diseases that are actually inhibited with cannabis, because they have a very, like cancer, it's been proven, pretty much numerous cancers are all stopped. So I don't know why, it states it in that way, but I disagree with that. And I do think that's a typo. This is from a company that I get slides for presentations from. And I can tell you that my research has told me that every single one, and in particular, Alzheimer's disease, is benefited from cannabis. A lot of these diseases start with microbial imbalances in the gut. And that's what science is now teaching us. And the beauty about the cannabis plant is that if you remember looking at all those flavonoids and the terpenes, a lot of them are antimicrobial. So they affect the colonies that are causing the dysbiosis in the gut. And they're fixing a lot of the diseases by going after the actual microbial imbalances that are causing that imbalance in the body. So it's doing it from two different regions. It's doing it directly with microbials, and then it's doing it by stimulating the CB1, CB2 receptors. So on a physical as well as a chemical basis. Okay.
Up in the brain section, it says relieves epilepsy symptoms specifically.
Yeah, I see that.
Oh, is that a spelling? I'm wondering if she's wondering if it's a spelling. Is that a spelling issue?
See, it says, I just think that it should be diseases, inhibited or cured. The word cured is very difficult to use because, you start to make claims with that. But right up on top, it even talks relieves epilepsy symptoms, so it doesn't cause epilepsy. I know that for a fact. I mean,
Okay.
so I just think that's a typo. I would take that word caused and I would say inhibited, because that's really what a disease is it's an imbalanced condition. So like with Alzheimer's, it's a lack of a synapses flow from a memory. And what the CBD does is it actually helps build those synapses. And that's how it's countering the effects of that. There's a deficiency that's causing that. And that's because it's out of balance. So the CBD tries to bring it back into balance by stopping whatever's causing that synapses not to flow or producing the chemicals to allow it to flow better. Back to homeostasis or balance again.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Good. Okay. And that's it for our slides. And let me get here and see if I can stop sharing. There we go. All right. So if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them now. Everybody good?
I don't have any more questions on the chat board. If anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask Tom personally, you're welcome to do that now.
I have a question, especially for pain. It said the sativa is not so much related or geared towards relieving pain. The indica is.
Right.
So my grandma's on sativa for pain, and she should probably switch over to indica.
Yeah. So she's using medical marijuana right now with THC, right?
The gummies, yeah.
Yeah. So again, you really need to be proactive in trying to understand what medicine they're giving you, because some of them just use an isolate and they might be just putting an isolate THC. Are they actually saying it's a sativa?
Yeah, they're saying it's a sativa.
Okay. And they do have the option that she can get an indica, because I would recommend it, or in a hybrid of a combination of the two.
Okay.
But a straight sativa is, you want to move around, because the pain is not going to be, in other words, the entourage effect, the plant it comes from, is going to affect pain differently, because it's going to hit the body differently. And that's what's important. So if she's not getting a lot of relief with it, have her try another kind. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
This was very informative. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. No, I think it's an amazing time, because this plant has been used since the beginning of time. Socrates, all of the great healers of time that talked about, overall health. There was a relationship with this plant. I think 2500 BC was the first writings of the cannabis plant. found in pretty much every society. And it was part of our society until, the early 1900s when there were political reasons that people made decisions that they didn't want it to be in our society. People were dropping their inhibitions. People of different colors were starting to have a good time together, and God forbid that should start to catch on. And we need to get rid of this because this is getting rid of inhibitions, and we can't have that. God forbid we all get along. How are they going to control us? So it's been taken away from us for all these years, and a lot of misperceptions, and the plant itself is only here for reasons that are helpful to the society, and helpful to every mammal on the planet. And they really, like I say, when you look at all of the different ways that this plant could be used in our society, everything from paper products to building supplies, right now you try to buy building supplies, and a sheet of plywood, or not even plywood, this oriented strand board, flake board, is like $40 a sheet. We could be making hemp building materials, and they could be a fraction of that. And that's what the future can look like. And that's what I believe is going to start to happen here. But it's going to be a little slow go because we're still fighting all these money systems that are set up. And that was the reason that hemp was not used for making paper, because there was a decision with big money people that there was too much money invested in the pulp mills. So that's why hemp was getting rid of. It would have been much more ecologically sound, but it doesn't matter. Money talked. But we're coming into a different time, and it's great. And we can get our medicine, and in 2 years, when we're able to grow, it'll become real cheap, because you'll be able to grow your own plants, and you'll be able to understand this medicine then, and you'll be able to make your own tinctures, or if you want to smoke the herb, any way you want to do it, we'll teach you how. We'll teach you how to understand this plant, how to grow this plant. It's meant to have a relationship with the human beings, and we have the opportunity to do it, and we love that opportunity to share it with everybody, because it's our society needs it. Need this.
We do have another question.
Sure, go right ahead.
Sorry, Tom. Do you know which strain or type of medical marijuana dispensaries provide?
No, actually, dispensaries are basically just distribution for grow houses, and depending on the varieties they're growing and what turns out, that's usually what they have in stock. It's very difficult in this state, because in this state they don't allow you to smoke herb, so they were only allowed to sell vapes and tinctures. And just recently I heard that they were starting to grind it up in a rough form and being able to sell it that way for people. But the market has just been so restricted that it's really been hard to understand what you're getting and why you're getting it. It's been a fiasco, and there's only five licenses that were granted $1 million each. So they were all big corporate licenses that came through. And I think that, I hate to say it, but it's a reality that corporations that are paying $1 million for a license, they care more about the dollar sign than they do about the medicine that's involved there. That's just my personal view. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. Personally, I'm excited about the medicine this plant has to offer. And if you can grow it yourself and not buy it from me, I am happy as hell, because you'll be happy, and that's more important in life.
Tom, just wanted to
Yes,
say
sir,
that.
Tom.
Thank you for a very interesting talk tonight. And I'll be seeing you soon.
You're quite welcome, and I hope it enlightened you to learn something new today, because that's what we strive for every day. And I think with this plant, it's something that needs to be more of what we're doing, what our society is doing. It can build community, that's for sure.
Some people say what's old is new again. It's new again.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks. Talk to you later, Tom. Bye.
Okay.
And Tom, I've got one more. Will herb be sold now with this legislation change?
You can't buy herb, but you could buy probably a hat and pay $70 for it, and somebody can give you $50 worth of pot free. That's legal, but they can't sell herb. You can have up to 3 ounces on your person, and it's legal. You can have up to five pounds of it at home, and it's legal, but you can't sell it. You can't pay somebody for it. In the state in Washington, D.C., my understanding is that people buy souvenir items for a very expensive price and get pot for free as a bonus for buying that souvenir. And that's about the only thing that's legal. And a dispensary will probably open. We're anticipating that if everything really goes at lightning speed, that there's a chance that a dispensary could open by January of 2022, which would mean 18 months after that, you can grow, which would mean the summer of 2023. So it's still 2.5 years away from being able, or about 2 years from being able to grow yourself. But at least it's getting closer every day, as opposed to not even being a possibility. So that's the reality of where things are at right now. And then when
Okay,
it comes,
I think that's it for the questions. I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead.
yeah, and I'll just summarize here. There's going to be a lot of licenses that are going to be involved with the distribution of cannabis. When it comes to hemp and CBD, we're allowed to do everything that we used to. We're going to be allowed to sell flowers for people to smoke, which I think is a big plus, or to buy flowers to take home and make your own tincture at a lot lower cost than buying a tincture already made for you. So that is now legal, and the workings are coming through. Licensing, we have to get a license. We already got a license to be able to sell it to the public. You'll need a license to grow it. You'll need a license to take it from the growing stage and distribute it. You'll need a license to change it in its form from one form to a different form. You'll need another license to distribute it to the public or to deliver it to the public. And the license that we're actually going to look for is a license that is crafted towards micro businesses, which would allow us to go from seed to the public and cut out all those middle people so that we could be a low-cost producer to our community. And that's our goal. The same thing that we did with CBD, we want to do with the THC product when it becomes available. And we'll look at how we'll do that and what the options are. So that's what our plans are going forward. All right, well, I think we'll conclude the Zoom meeting. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your day. I'll put this up on the YouTube station on Singer Farm Naturals so that you can refer back and kind of refresh your mind. You know, it's, I think when you look at all of the science behind this, it demystifies a lot of the taboo or a lot of the negative press that, you know, marijuana, it's really the cannabis plant has gotten over the years. And, you know, I'm just so glad to finally see this happening, because it, there's a whole segment of our population that had to do this in a closet per se. And now they can come out and they don't have to feel ashamed of what they've done. They've been getting their medicine because they know they needed it. And now they don't have to be ashamed that they did that. And it's being more accepted in society. And as it becomes more and more mainstream, I think a lot of people will see that, you know, it's not like just a drug. It's actually medicine, and it has its place. And if we understand it, we can use it that way and really get the best out of our journey, which we call life. So hope everybody has a great day, and happy 420, as it's called. And by the way, 420 is, the date is 420 today, and it's always related to cannabis. And everybody likes to know, where did that come from? And one of the stories is, I'm not sure if it's the origin, but in California, there were a group of guys that every day after school, they would have a code, and the code was, we'll meet at 4:20, because that's when classes were over, and they would all get together and they would enjoy some herb, and then they would carry on with their day. And that was the code that everybody would always talk about, can't wait till 4:20. And that's where one of the stories is that 4:20 came from. So a little trivia for you. Have a great 4:20, and we'll talk to you again. We'll have another workshop probably in about 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll talk about gut microbes. I think it's good to have a review class from time to time, just so we keep our awareness and we keep our immune systems very sharp. So have a great day.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tom. You too.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.